In other words, these are going to be time segments that they're going to have in order to communicate their case to you. The first time segment is 20 minutes, and during that time they'll have the opportunity to build their basic case as they try to convince you that the evidence points either toward atheism or toward Christianity. Now, a word about the time. Both of these men are very passionate about what they believe. They're very enthusiastic about the evidence they want to share with you tonight. And so if they go over the time limit, it is not anything to hold against them. It's just a product of their enthusiasm for what they're doing. So I hope you won't hold it against them, but I hope you won't hold it against me either if I sort of step in when the clock runs down and encourage them to wrap up. Oh, just a word about that. So please now, as we get ready to begin this first 20-minute segment, really engage your minds, give special attention, because you're going to be asked in the end to decide which side presented the most compelling evidence. Keep in mind, the rhetoric is not important. The style of delivery is not important. But the evidence that's going to be presented tonight is very important. So please give your attention first to Dr. William Lane Craig.
Good evening. In tonight's debate, we've been asked to assess the question where the evidence points, to atheism or to Christianity. Now, before we can answer that question, we need to have some idea of what we're talking about. So let me begin by defining some terms. First, by Christianity, I mean the view that God exists and has revealed himself decisively in Jesus Christ. We're not being called upon to debate fine points of doctrine, which Christians themselves differ on, like is the Bible inerrant, or did God use evolution to create living things? These are of secondary importance in comparison with the fundamental truth that God exists and has decisively revealed himself to us in Jesus Christ. Secondly, by atheism, I mean the view that God does not exist. On the atheist view, there is no such being or person as God. Now, the question before us tonight is, when you weigh the evidence for atheism against the evidence for Christianity, which way, on balance, does the evidence point? In support of a Christian answer to that question, I'm going to defend two basic contentions in tonight's debate. Number one, there's no good evidence that atheism is true. And number two, there is good evidence that Christianity is true. Let's look then at my first basic contention. There's no good evidence that atheism is true. The claim that God does not exist is just as much a claim to know something as is the claim that God does exist. Therefore, if Mr. Zindler is to maintain that the evidence points toward atheism, he's got to do more than just say there's no good evidence for God's existence. He must present evidence against God's existence. He's therefore simply mistaken when he says in the Tribune that atheism makes no claims, and so it has nothing to defend. Atheist philosophers have tried for centuries to disprove the existence of God. But no one's been able to come up with a convincing argument. So rather than attack straw men at this point, I'll just wait to hear Mr. Zindler's response to the following question. What is the evidence that atheism is true? Let's go on then to my second basic contention. There is good evidence that Christianity is true. And here I'd like to present 5 lines of evidence which render the Christian faith highly probable in contrast to atheism. Number one, the evidence points to a creator of the universe. Have you ever asked yourself where the universe came from? Why anything at all exists instead of just nothing? Typically, atheists have said that the universe is eternal, and that's all. But surely this is unreasonable. Just think about it for a minute. If the universe never had a beginning, that means that the number of past events in the history of the universe is infinite. But mathematicians know that an actually infinite number of things leads to self-contradictions. For example, what is infinity minus infinity? Well, mathematically, you get self-contradictory answers. That shows that infinity is just an idea in your mind, not something that exists in reality. David Hilbert, perhaps the greatest mathematician of this century, states, "The infinite is nowhere to be found in reality. It neither exists in nature nor provides a legitimate basis for rational thought. The role that remains for the infinite to play is solely that of an idea." But that entails that since past events are not just ideas but are real, the number of past events must be finite. Therefore, the series of past events can't just go back and back forever. Rather, the universe must have begun to exist. This conclusion has been confirmed by remarkable discoveries in astronomy and astrophysics. The astrophysical evidence indicates that the universe began to exist in a great explosion called the Big Bang about 15 billion years ago. Physical space and time were created in that event, as well as all the matter and energy in the universe. Therefore, as the Cambridge astronomer Fred Hoyle points out, the Big Bang theory requires the creation of the universe from nothing. This is because as you go back in time, you reach a point at which, in Hoyle's words, the universe was shrunk down to nothing at all. Thus, what the Big Bang model requires is that the universe began to exist and was created out of nothing. Now, this tends to be very awkward for the atheist. Quentin Smith, an atheist philosopher, writes, "The response of atheists to this development has been comparatively weak, indeed almost invisible. An uncomfortable silence seems to be the rule when the issue arises among non-believers. The reason for the embarrassment of non-theists is not hard to find. Anthony Kenny of Oxford University suggests it in this statement. A proponent of the Big Bang theory, at least if he is an atheist, must believe that the universe came from nothing and by nothing." But that's a pretty hard pill to swallow. Out of nothing, nothing comes. So why does the universe exist instead of just nothing? Where did it come from? There must have been a cause which brought the universe into being. From the very nature of the case, this cause must be an uncaused, changeless, timeless, and immaterial being which created the universe. Isn't it incredible that the Big Bang theory thus points to exactly what the Christian has always believed, that in the beginning, God created the universe? Now, I put it to you, which is more plausible? That the Christian is right, or that the universe just popped into being uncaused out of nothing? I at least don't have any trouble assessing these probabilities. Number two, the evidence points to an intelligent designer of the cosmos. During the last 25 years, scientists have discovered that the existence of intelligent life depends upon an incredibly delicate and complex balance of initial conditions simply given in the Big Bang itself. We now know that life-prohibiting universes are vastly more probable than our life-permitting universe. How much more probable? Well, before I give you an estimation, let me share with you some numbers just to give you a feel for the odds. The number of seconds in the history of the universe is around 10 to the 18th power. That is, 10 followed by 18 zeros. The number of subatomic particles in the entire universe is said to be about 10 to the 80th power. Now, with those numbers in mind, consider the following. Donald Page, one of America's eminent cosmologists, has calculated the odds of our universe existing as 1 out of 10 billion to the 124th power. A number which is so inconceivable that to call it astronomical would be a wild understatement. Robert Jastrow, the head of NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies, has called this the most powerful evidence for the existence of God ever to come out of science. Once again,